Hi, everyone. I'm Diane Brady. I'm here with my colleague, Zach Everson, staff writer at Forbes, and I hope you get the Checks and Imbalances newsletter because we get an awful lot of fodder from that ourselves. Nice to see you, Zach.
Thanks for having me, Diane.
So we're talking about Senator John Fetterman, who has checked himself into Walter Reade for clinical depression. It's causing a lot of ripple effects in terms of the discussion, of course. Give us some sense, is this, I don't want to say politically, is it a risky move? What was it anticipated in some way? I mean, was there some sense that he was vulnerable, or did this come as a surprise to everyone?
To depression, there hadn't been, I think it was largely a surprise. That he had health issues is clearly well known. So if it wasn't that, it wouldn't have been too surprising if it were something else. The overall take is obviously top concern for Senator Fetterman and his family is generally what's been the forefront of people's minds here in DC. What's been surprising and only compared to the past is just how it's been treated compared to previous instances where people were found to have mental illness issues. And the fact that he was upfront and admitted this is remarkable compared to just, a few decades ago, what it would have been, where if there were any sort of rumors that you were undergoing treatment for clinical depression, it could have been a career ender. So in that regard, it's very impressive as to how far we've come as a country in this issue.
Well, I think the specter there is it Senator Eagleman, 72, right?
Eagleton, yes,
yeah, who
72.
basically had mental health, and that precluded him from being vice presidential candidate in the McGovern.
Oh, he got dumped. He got dumped off the ticket as soon as they found it out. And McGovern did come around to later say he regretted that move, but it was a non-starter.
But that was a generation ago. Now, of course, we're having a much wider discussion about mental health. I don't know if it's viewed in the same light as physical health difficulties at this point, but there is a precedent in the Senate, in Congress in general, for having politicians be out for protracted periods of time for physical issues, is there not?
Oh yeah. You've seen that. John McCain with his cancer treatment. It's not uncommon, and this is just the first time, as you said, that it's really come to the forefront about it being a mental health issue.
Now, you mentioned the physical issues he'd had before, which I know are being tied to this, and we're not going to give a prognosis as to what goes forward. But when he had a stroke on the campaign trail, how was that playing out? There were certainly concerns at the time. In some ways, people felt it helped him in some ways in terms of creating sympathy. What do you think?
It's tough to get into the politics of that. I can certainly see both sides of the coin. But it speaks to something that we don't really do a good job as a country with like what to do when somebody in these high profile positions has a health issue. And whether you're a candidate or you're actually in the Senate, there's a famous story from, I guess it was about 5 years ago, where a DC area pharmacist was being covered about how they do deliveries to members of Congress, and he just kind of listed some of the medicines he delivers.
Right?
Yes, one of them was an Alzheimer's drug. So you have members of Congress with Alzheimer's, and there's no shortage of Congress people who are kind of in cognitive decline who've also stayed in office. Dianne Feinstein being the most recent example of that. But you can go back to Robert Byrd, Strom Thurmond, and there's no shortage of that. And it's what do we do? And I think that's part of it as a society. We view it as you can't step down from something and save face. It looks bad. I think Simone Biles did a wonderful job of showing that doesn't have to be the case. And hopefully that will extend over to politics as well.
Well, but at the same time, let's go to the corporate realm. And first of all, it's a fiduciary duty for CEOs to reveal when they have a health crisis. And if it's protracted, there's a certain also fiduciary duty to step down because you can't fulfill the job. So I think that's a discussion we don't have very much in Congress. But let's look at the balance in the Senate, which we've talked about for some time. It's quite a delicate balance. How does this impact things?
Makes it tighter. The Democrats still have control if Senator Fetterman can't make it to a vote, but it is a 50-49. So they cannot afford to lose both, say, Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema and hold on there. So we'll see. But, going back to the fiduciary standpoint, that's the issues, the voters spoke. So it's very hard to override what the voters are. And, with the president, we have the 25th Amendment. It might be something worth looking at what we do for other leaders in the country, both in Congress and other leaders in the executive branch. Like, what happens if something like this were to happen?
Yeah. Well, obviously, we wish him well, and it is a discussion many people are having in their families right now. So thanks for joining us.